How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the deaths of Hank Aaron and Larry King. Now, before I get into it, I just want to say rest in peace to both of these men. Brilliant in their professions. Of course, Hank Aaron, very well known, famous baseball player, Hall of Fame baseball player. May he rest in peace. He was 86 years old. And Larry King, of course, one of the best interviewers to ever do it. All right. One of my personal favorites, actually. He was 87 years old. Now, the way that these men died is not really being treated the same way it would have been treated if Trump were still in office. All right. Now, some of you may be kind of offended right away. How are you going to bring politics into it? There's nothing to do with it. Respect their legacy. I'm not trying to go against their legacy. I'm just trying to say that the way that they died will be covered differently if we did not have Joe Biden in office. And that's facts. Or at least that's just my humble opinion. Let me back up a little bit here to explain what I'm talking about. Now, in a lot of the news that I'm reading, they're not talking about all of the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Larry King had the virus. He was in the hospital in Los Angeles with the virus, experiencing symptoms from it. It wasn't like, okay, he had the virus and he was asymptomatic. No, he had the virus and he was struggling with the virus. And he died in the hospital. Now, they're not saying he died from the virus. They're just saying that he died. It could have been a stroke, could have been a heart attack. He had heart attacks before. I don't know exactly what's going on as far as his specific cause of death. But what I do know is that he was in the hospital with the virus and he died at the same time he had the virus in the hospital. So, I mean, if this were pre-Biden, don't you think the headline would have been Larry King dies of the virus? Wouldn't that have been it? Because if you are 87 years old, you're in a hospital, experiencing symptoms, you have the virus, it'll just make sense, right? But now they're saying, oh, they really don't know what happened. It's undetermined. That's pretty interesting. Okay, and then Hank Aaron, he died. They're not really saying what happened. I'm reading that he may have had a stroke, but I'm not really sure if that's true or false. But what they're not saying in most of the articles is that he had the vaccine 2 weeks ago. Okay, he got the first shot 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure if he got a follow-up shot or whatever the case may be. But the whole purpose behind him getting the vaccine, from what I've been reading, is to instill confidence in the black community to go out there and get the vaccine, because a lot of us just aren't really with it. You know, the whole Tuskegee situation, and we're just not really with it. We're kind of skeptical of getting the vaccine because we know it might not be totally safe. I mean, they came out with it in a very short period of time. They're still kind of testing it out. There's still some problems. We're seeing some headlines where they said 23 people died in Norway who got the vaccine right after they got it. They were elderly and frail, but they died right after the vaccine. So was it because of the vaccine or was it because they're elderly and frail? Either way it goes, we're not really with it. They're seeing, I think, out of all the groups in America, blacks are the least likely to get the vaccine. So the whole point behind Hank Aaron getting it was to instill confidence. So that would go against the whole narrative if they report he got the vaccine 2 weeks ago and now he's gone. That'll just make it worse. It's like, okay, I'm not getting that because Hank Aaron died. I'm definitely not getting that. So they're not really reporting that too much. Now, like I say, I don't know how Hank Aaron died or how Larry King died. I'm reading things, stroke, heart attack could have been, but I'm not really sure. What I do know for certain is that Hank Aaron got the vaccine 2 weeks ago and Larry King had the virus actively. He was in the hospital with symptoms and he dies in the hospital. Like I said, if this were during Trump still, the virus would most certainly be front and center of every headline regarding these men's deaths. Now, the question is, why is it the case? Aside from, Joe Biden being in there and they want to make it look a little bit better for him, why are these deaths not really counted as being virus related or directly caused by the virus? Well, the World Health Organization on Inauguration Day changed the standards upon which you have a positive virus test. Okay, it's something with the PCR. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know about all this, but I'll link it in the box below. You got to test for this thing called a PCR. And now that's not enough just to have the positive PCR test say that you have the virus because you got that. You got to have the positive PCR test plus symptoms, and you got to come back for a second test. So there's a higher standard that you got to reach to be counted as a virus positive patient. All right. And then they're saying that we've already reached our peak as far as deaths. It's like, okay, you put out the new standard for being tested positive for the virus on inauguration day, and that same day or like a few hours later, like on the 21st, you put out a story that says we've peaked already. How do you know that? How is it possible to say that we've peaked in the virus deaths already? What science is that based on? How do we know that it won't be a new strain, or when they loosen restriction, what they're doing right now, things are being loosened up. They're loosening up all of a sudden in Washington, D.C., Michigan, all over the place, starting to loosen up. Just so happens to be after Biden becomes the president, but different story, I digress. They're loosening up. So just from what I've been hearing from the mainstream media and some of the so-called scientists, that if you have less restrictions, less mask mandates and ordinances, you go back to eating in person, in a restaurant, all this and that, and you're going to have more cases of the virus and more deaths. So how can we say that we've already peaked right now? What science is that based on? Are they saying we've already peaked from the virus because there's going to be a higher standard upon which you got to reach to be able to be positive of the virus? So maybe you're going to have more flu deaths like normal and less of the virus deaths because you're going to have less people tested positive because it changed the standard. Maybe that's what's going on. And maybe they don't want to talk about the virus being involved with Larry King's death because, again, they're changing the standards and they're trying to just reduce the amount of virus news coverage and the positive virus cases to get publicized. Maybe that's what's going on. It appears to be that way, okay? This is why I've said in previous videos that this whole virus thing has been politicized, all right? People's deaths politicized. And it's really crazy because if you're playing political games, this is not a game that is fun, obviously. People are losing their life, their livelihood behind this. They can't go to school, they can't go to work, they can't do much of anything, and they got to rely upon the government to help take care of them. This is not a thing that is cool. It's not a game, really, that we're playing. But this is what's happening right now. And I'm just kind of over it. I think a lot of Americans are over it. And we're not going to forget this. We know what's going on. The average person knows what's going on. They know that this whole thing with the virus is kind of being blown out of proportion. And now all of a sudden, when Biden comes in there, they want to downplay it. You know, I feel like a lot of mayors, governors, politicals, maybe even the WHO itself, the World Health Organization, who just changed their standard on inauguration day, I feel like they're all kind of working together in concert or in separate little splinter cells to attack the former president, Donald Trump, so he gets out of office. So they want to blame this whole thing with the virus and the loss of jobs and all of that on him. And then as soon as he's gone, then they want to go back to normal because they knew it was a game from the beginning. All right. Now, I understand you want to get the guy out of office, but look at all the collateral damage that we have. All right. Do we not care about that? I guess not. And it's really a shame that you got a lot of people that would champion those that played this game with us and say it's all right for them to be in office. This is not really a big deal. And if you don't believe in science, you're a conspiracy theorist, all this and that and the third. Okay. You see why the Biden administration kept Fauci and they fired the Surgeon General. This guy's giving out wrong advice. He was right the first time and then wrong the second time about the mask. He put out a certain political narrative that was not advantageous to the American people, but was advantageous to him and his future political goals, and also his friends that have been in government for a very long time that don't like Trump or anybody affiliated with him. All right. He's on TV recently talking crazy, talking about I feel liberated, I can breathe again, all this and that. When he was the one that said from the beginning, honestly, that masks aren't really going to help. It might block a droplet or two, but it ain't really going to help. Then he said, oh, you got to wear a mask. And then he came back and said, oh, I lied the first time because we had to have the mask for medical professionals, all this and that. And the third, you're lying, you're playing games, you're changing the standards, you're not reporting things the same way. This whole thing with the virus has been a mess. We saw Joe Biden in the previous video, not even adhering to his own mask guidelines, talking about, oh, you got to wear a mask on federal land. And then on that exact same day where he signed that executive order go to Lincoln Memorial, which is most certainly federal land, federal property, even though it's not in a closed building, it is federal land, out there with no mask on, not only by himself, but also with the press and also with his entire family. And none of the family had masks on either. This has all been the big game, and it's really unfortunate because people are dying, and we don't know what's going on. We don't know if the great Hank Aaron died from the vaccine or what he really died from. We don't know if Larry King, who had the virus, died from the virus. We don't know what's happening, and it's really a shame. And I think that as we see more cases like this, we're going to just start to wake up and say, all right, no more. We're not even really going to entertain it. We're pretty much done with this whole charade, and we're going to move on with our lives. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's going on with these deaths? Why aren't they reporting it in a full and complete way? Now, like I said from the beginning, I don't know how Larry King or Hank Aaron died, but what I do know is that Hank Aaron had the vaccine 2 weeks ago and Larry King had the virus. So what's going on? Why aren't these important pieces of information really being highlighted in the stories about their deaths? What's going on? Why is it that they changed the standard for positive virus results on Inauguration Day? And why is it that they said that we've already peaked right on Inauguration Day or like the next day? Why is it that you have certain governors and mayors loosening restrictions on Inauguration Day, a day later, 2 days later, Michigan, New York, et cetera, so on and so forth. DC, you can have indoor dining right now in DC, but you couldn't do it before under Trump. What's changed besides a day on the calendar and a new administration? Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.